Okay, welcome back to solo role Mangging with Shadowdark, Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur. Although the Scarlet Minotaur is no more, he is a smoldering corpse, and we have his axe. It's funny that I really had no issue with the Scarlet Minotaur, although that was perhaps a more subjective ruling, perhaps? I don't know. It seemed fair. It seemed good. How are you going to put a bunch of jars that explode and then not expect me to lead the rampaging Minotaur into them? I mean, come on. I had more trouble with less trouble with the Scarlet Minotaur than these sorceress pillars. And so I watched the video of the designer of Shadowdark, and she wrote this adventure, of course, as well. And she said that this was like one of her favorite rooms in the dungeon, and like one of the most complicated traps that she's written for Shadowdark up to this point. And all she really said about it was that she's played it with a bunch of groups that have come up with a lot of creative solutions, but she wouldn't say what any of those solutions were. So that didn't leave me with much to go off of. So then I went to a video where a group played through the whole adventure in multiple parts. You know, it took them hours and hours. And so I specifically skipped to when they encounter this room. And it seems perhaps that I overthought it. I thought too much about it all. And I think I was partly hampered by my own knowledge of the room. And I just was like, this seems terrible. How are you going to do this? And so I was hoisted on my own petard. Maybe. Maybe. But that group, you know, they walked in, and they walked past the pillars, obviously, because they didn't think much of it, and then they got lit on fire. And the guy that got lit on fire was actually, he had 1 HP. So he immediately died, or, you know, went down. And they pulled his corpse back, and they healed him up. And then they quickly realized that this DM, okay, not my kind of DM. Let me just say that. This DM was extremely open with information. And I know I just said I screwed myself based on the information, but as they kind of went along, he was very open with the information. And so basically he told them, as soon as they crossed, he basically just said, oh, all the flammable things on you ignite. And you take 1d4 damage per round. And then the DM also didn't seem to have read all the information fully, which is not great. So he actually had to mention later that, oh, actually, when you pulled him back, some of the things stopped being on fire when you pulled them back. And they were like, oh, okay. And then, like, when they went past the other pillars, he just told them, like, oh, seawater fills up your lungs. And then roll 1d6 to see when you drown. And then when they went past the green pillar, it's like, oh, you're poisoned. It's a DC 12 Constitution check on your turn, or you lose your turn. This is... I'm just going to go ahead and say it's wrong. I just think it's wrong. Don't DM like that, please. I mean, I know that there's DMs that do impart more information to players than other DMs. And that's kind of a subjective thing. But for God's sakes, we're not playing a board game. This is a fucking RPG. Okay, you need to dress it up at least a little bit. It needs to be a little evocative. It needs to be a little immersive. I don't want to ever hear you're poisoned, roll a DC 12 con check on your turn every turn or you lose it. I don't want to hear that. I would rather be left in the dark a little bit just to make it more evocative and mysterious. Because my character wouldn't know that it's a DC 12 con check every turn on my turn, or I lose it. You know, we're trying to immerse ourselves a little bit in a role-playing game. And that's why this is different than a board game. I don't know. I just kind of offended me, really. Anyways, yeah, so just don't do that. Because ultimately, the information didn't change anything they did. So it didn't matter. It just felt wrong. But regardless, they first were like, okay, so the DM decided or stated that their hair lights on fire as well. And I understand that because the Ettercap's fur is scorched, implying that his, any hair on their body also lights on fire. But then again, I would make the same argument that why is my skin not flammable? Is skin flammable? I don't even... maybe it's not. But hair isn't flammable. Hair just burns. I don't know. What's the definition of flammable? Is skin flammable? This is a good search. Apparently, no. Your skin... well, no, this says it is. This says skin is flammable. It's just as flammable as hair, along with your fingernails, but hair is dry, has a low heat capacity, and has a lot more surface area. Your skin and fingernails are cooled by sweat and blood, increasing their heat capacity. But the thing doesn't mention anything about the heat afflicting you, because it says anything flammable. I mean, everything is flammable. If the heat is hot enough, it's ridiculous. If I toss an iron shield into the sun, it's going to start on fire. Everything can start on fire at a high enough temperature. I mean, your lungs are flammable. Why don't your lungs start on fire then? I mean, where do you draw the fucking line? And I know, I'm overthinking this again. They did it so easily. It took them like 3 minutes to get through this room and get the sword. And I just can't get over it. I don't know. I don't know why I have such an issue with this. There's just so little information here, and I just want clarification. And I know the OSR is all about, and old school role-playing is all about kind of just going with the flow and just making quick judgment calls. And yes, if I was DMing this, I would make fucking quick judgment calls. I wouldn't sit here and Google and all this and debate with myself while I was DMing. I would just go and go and go. But for some reason, I'm sitting here and I have the time and the inclination to just debate. So anyways, it says anything on you. Anything flammable on you. hair, I guess, is counting as on you, whereas your eyeballs, for some reason, then, are not on you. Where's the delineation there? I mean, this is medieval fantasy. You probably got some massive pubes. Do I have to also shave off all my pubic hair? Otherwise, my groin is going to start on fire? If not, then my hair on the top of my head shouldn't start on fire either. But then you fucked me with this Ettercat body because he's got scorched fur. So his fur started on fire. And if his fur starts on fire, then the line is... I mean, who knows where? Who knows where we draw the line? It could be anywhere. And as much as I rag on, like, D&D 5th edition and stuff like that, their, like, traps and stuff are pretty clear. I don't think I would have this same issue with, like, a 5th edition D&D trap. I mean, I might. I haven't read that many, but... Okay, anyways. Fine, anyways. So, they... initially, they were talking about... Well, someone's gonna have to, like, shave their head, you know, and all they really said was head. I think maybe they said body hair as well. But, again, that would also include your eyebrows. I don't know where you would stop. Your nose hair is probably flammable, too. And they didn't mention pubic hair. What about, like, the hair on your toes or something? I mean, that's a lot of shaving to do in the middle of a dungeon just to get over there. But they eventually decided against that, and they went with dousing themselves in water, which admittedly is probably the best solution. And really, I don't know how many other solutions there are to getting past. I would love to sit down with the designer and just hear, like, what other solutions there are. I would really love to hear all the creative solutions she's encountered. So they doused this guy in water, because your rations include water. And then they tied a rope around him, and he kept going. And so then he hits the blue pillars, and the DM tells him seawater fills his lungs, and he's drowning. And he rolls the 1d6, and the guy rolls 6. So he maxes out that save, which is pretty damn good. Then he keeps going. He gets hit with the green, the poison. He actually fails like 2 of his saves on the con, remarkably. So he's just sitting there like puking or whatever. He said that he was like puking or coughing or something, but that would conflict with the seawater in your lungs. So I don't know exactly the mechanism of why you're losing your turn, but whatever. Then he keeps going and he gets blinded. And I made a bigger deal out of the blinded, but the DM did completely ignore the moving at half speed thing. So that would have affected things. But it would have just added an extra round. Had the guy rolled a lower roll on the seawater, he might have been in trouble, but he ended up back at the start with like 2 rounds left or something. So, whatever. 2 or 3 rounds. So he's blinded, but he kept moving forward because he saw the altar. So he knew it was straight ahead of him. And he bumps into it. And then, he grabs the sword. And I had said that the check would be made at a disadvantage, but it actually wouldn't, because the disadvantage only counts when you have to rely on vision. And he didn't have to rely on vision to pull this out of the altar. And he rolled an 18 on his strength check. So he got the sword, and he started moving backwards, and they pulled him back on the rope. And they had doused the rope in water as well, so that it was singeing. It was kind of on fire, but it wasn't on fire. And they pulled him back, and he was done. And that was it, and they moved on. And I kind of kicked myself, because it was like, look at how fucking easy and quick and simple that was. And really, the DM followed it basically by the letter. So really it wasn't even that much of a creative solution in any way. He just kind of kept walking forward and grabbed the sword and went back. Like, basically that's what happened. The only clever part was dousing herself in water. And then it was kind of blind luck on a good luck roll for the seawater, not getting continually fucked by the poison, and then a good roll on the strength check. So it basically came down to luck. I almost don't want to even engage with this room anymore. I just want to move on and just ignore it. Because I just don't like it. I don't like this room. I'll just straight up tell you, I don't like this room. I think this is a poor puzzle. I think it's a poor trap room. I don't think it has that many creative solutions. Apparently, I might be wrong on that. But this really just seems like, yeah, roll pretty well and just keep bumbling through and get the sword and come back. And that, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't like it. I could probably just do it. I could do exactly what they did. Really. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't steal somebody else's ideas. But the problem is, I don't have any other ideas. The only other idea, then, is just shaving our priest's body entirely. And I'm not going to sit here and do that. So, I don't have any other option, and I'm just going to move on. I hate this room. I'm very curious to see what my family does when they run this, if they encounter this room. But I would imagine they're probably going to give up. I mean, maybe they'll bumble through and do something similar, but I will commiserate with them if they do give up. So let's just frickin' move on. Now back to the bull statue. That I didn't really watch it when they went past. I skipped past it because I skipped right to this room, but it sounded like I was catching the tail end of it. It sounded like he was going to have the bull hit them at the other end of the hallway if they rolled a 1, 2, or 3. If they failed their 50-50 chance and the bull noticed them and charged forward. That's insane. I would call so much bullshit on a DM for something like that. Because that means the statue is moving 6 times faster than a person. And if that's the case, 6 times faster, that's way more than 2d6 damage. You are fucking red paste if that thing hits you. That is like a Buick going 60, smashing into you. You are dead, and there's not even a question about it. And yeah, I don't like that DM. I'm not even gonna say who it is. I'm not gonna call out anything, but I would not play in that DM's group. I'll just state that. Just needlessly hostile about all this. Anyways. So let's go back then to this hallway with the bull statue. And yeah, I think really, I mean, it's going to be very simple to go past this. If we want to go up here and beyond, that's going to be pretty simple. Let me start my light timer again. Because we can just fake out the charge, let him hit the wall, and then follow him back until we get to this hallway and then keep going. But if we want the emerald, it's going to be a little trickier. We may want to look at the hold person or hold portal spell. It says you magically hold a portal closed. So what exactly defines a portal as far as hold portal? So the original spell description in the very Men in Magic supplement for original D&D. The spell holds shut some opening, such as a door or a gate. That's it. And in AD&D, magically bars a door, gate, or valve of wood, metal, or stone. So it's not you have to have some sort of physical structure that you are sealing. You can't just have like an archway by itself. That seems to be how I understand the definition. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so a whole portal won't really stop him from charging. As far as mechanical constructions, not much we can really do. If we wanted to get potentially technical, maybe you could like wrap some rope around him from behind and then like jam it into the wall with iron spikes, sort of anchoring him to the wall, and that might prevent him from being able to charge forward when we rip out the emerald. It all comes down to, obviously I can get the thief onto the thing's back and it won't trigger from that. It's more a question of, will it trigger when I try to remove the emerald? And if it does trigger when I try to remove the emerald, this thing's going to charge forward with the thief on top of him, probably knocking the thief off. And then all it takes is 1 damage to kill the thief. And then we enter a really tricky thing if he's like in the middle of the hallway dead. So if we do want to nullify the idea of the thing charging forward when we take out the emerald, is we want the emerald intact. It's worth a hell of a lot more. So I think that's probably the plan. Wrap a bunch of rope around it. You know, we got 60 feet of rope. He's right next to the wall on the back end. So we don't need much extra rope beyond just wrapping it around him. And then anchor the rope to the wall with iron spikes. But it's stone walls. So, I don't know. I feel like you'd have to, like, hammer it in with my crowbar or something. And that doesn't seem good. Because, again, we're going with the idea that it's, it's a bipedal, like, realistic-looking bronze statue of a Minotaur, or of a bull. Is it a bull, or is it a Minotaur? It's a bull statue. Oh, I thought it was a Minotaur this whole time. Oh, okay. Again, it's such a lack of information that a DM just kind of would have to come up with on the spot. Because you wouldn't really be able to have, like, a discussion about it. You would just have to make a ruling. The emerald definitely is involved in the activation of the statue. But we don't know what the motion activation comes from. But it's hard to say. It's impossible to say. And, yeah. I don't know why. We didn't have nearly this much trouble with Trial of the Slime Lord. I'm having so many issues with just lack of information. I don't don't know if it's specifically like this adventure. I've been like partly reading a lot of modules recently. And I guess nothing has really stood out to me, but that's because now that we're playing it, like, we really get into the nitty-gritty and we break things down a lot more. So there could be a lot of bullshit that I'll find in modules that I just don't know how to explain. And a lot of times I won't have to when I'm DMing for a group that's not particularly creative. So anyways, let's just trigger the bull. You know, we'll just, like, wave our hand kind of in front of the doorway there in the hallway. And it'll run down. Unlike that DM, and there's no danger of us getting hit by it, because that would be ridiculous. And then when it turns to trot back, we're all gonna follow. Again, it doesn't say how fast it trots back into position. I don't know how fast a trot is for a bull. At a pace faster than a walk. So it's not a gallop for a horse. Averages about 8 miles per hour. $8 miles per hour. Is that really fast? I have no idea. Okay, so Usain Bolt's fastest speed ever was 27 miles per hour. So this group can definitely handle 8. So that's no problem. Okay. But now our light spell went out just as we're we're following past this. Quickly light up his shield again. D20. I rolled a 3. Damn it. Okay, we lost the light spell for today, but we got that. So we're following past it, and the thief is going to hop up onto the bull. But this thing's 10 feet tall. This is a massive bull. Holy shit. How is he going to get up there? Maybe the dwarf can toss him up or something. He does have advantage in climbing. But I don't know how you climb up a bronze statue like this while it's moving. He's not going to do it while it's moving. That would be stupid. So the other 3... Oh, he's going to be in the darkness then, though. Okay. The priest and the wizard, they're going to pop off into this hallway. The fighter and the thief, they're going to follow the bull all the way to the end and tuck behind him. And then nothing should happen. And then now the thief is going to climb up the bull from the back. This would probably be like a DC 12 or something like that. A stationary bull. It shouldn't be that difficult, I wouldn't think. Worst comes to worst, he can just, like, toss a rope over to the other side. And the fighter can hold on to it while he climbs up. So, yeah. There you go, no problem. So he's up on the bull, and now the question comes of, can he pry off the emerald without it triggering? Honestly, I'm still not sure of how to rule it. Is it the primary mechanism by which this thing is motion activated? And even if it was, if I slide in a knife from, like, the top of it, surely its motion activation doesn't extend that much upwards. How could you possibly know? It's one of those things, I guess, where it's like, if I was just spitballing and I was just making stuff up as I went, and I had this bull statue that was motion activated, I would be able to just be like, ba 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 ba, you know, this is how it works because I'm making it up as I go. But here, I feel like I'm running someone else's intention, and I don't know their intention, you know? So it's like I'm trying to like oracle. I'm trying to discern their mysterious intentions when they created this, and I don't know what that is. It almost feels like playing a point-and-click adventure game, and you're just trying all these different combinations of things because you're just like, how do I get in the fucking designer's headspace when they were creating this and figure out what they intended? I would lean towards it's not going to trigger when I slide a knife into the top of the emerald. I would picture this motion activation to be much more big picture stuff of any sort of larger creatures traversing these hallways. Because if you limit it, if you're saying a knife coming in like that is going to trigger it, I mean, then you got to have like bugs set this thing off. Rats set this thing off. You know, all sorts of stuff would set this thing off just by existing in these hallways. And that doesn't quite feel like the intention, I dare say. So, we're just going to go ahead and give me the emerald. Feel free to disagree, and feel free to run it your own way. I don't want to listen to that DM run this thing anymore, because it bothers me. But I would be interested to see how he rules on... Well, I don't know, maybe they don't do stuff like this. I feel like it seemed like kind of the group that would go for emeralds in foreheads. Anyways, it's an emerald worth 120 gold pieces, which is quite a bit. We're going to give ourselves another XP for that. Well done. And now, pretty simply, we're just going to tell... We're going to... Not yell, we're just going to tell. We're going to speak out loud, telling, like, the priest to, like, wave their hand in front of the statue until it triggers. And this is a little bit dice here, I would admit, that because now they're like half the distance, so that's 5, 10, 15, 20 feet away. But surely this thing makes some kind of noise, and it's really just like their arm that they have to whip back. It would be a pretty mean DM to be like, oh yeah, you failed your dex check, well there goes your arm, and you're dead now. Sorry. So, yeah. So they're just going to trigger that. It charges... Actually, no, we don't even need to do that. We remove the emerald. It's fucking deactivated. We just walk out. Okay. Then, there's this. There's a staircase leading up and out. And there's actually multiple entrances and exits in this dungeon. There's the one we came in, the main one. And I didn't even think about this. But there's actually a way from up top to drop down into the central courtyard. I guess that might be an open area. Yeah. It's an open courtyard. So you could get on top of this complex and drop down in, and you might see the Scarlet Minotaur just roaming around down there, and you could probably like start picking them off anyways. I imagine the Minotaur is not that stupid that he'll just stand there like a video game monster until you kill him. He'll probably run off. But, yeah, you might be able to just, like, stun him or contain him in some way or alpha strike him in some way. I don't know. It's possible. And then there's western, this side, in this whole section. And right here where we are, there's... So, you know, don't necessarily start your players if you're running this, like, in room 1. You know, start them outside of the whole Citadel. Let them see it from the outside, and they might try and find some different way in than these front gates. Anyways, continuing on, we're not leaving yet. We got this door on our left, which we know doesn't really result in much, so we'll just keep going. We got some steps going up. Some more hallways. Let's just keep going. We're kind of just going room to room, which is sort of what you normally do. And we have a door on our right. Let's check this one out. Actually, I haven't been doing this, but all of the doors have a 1 in 6 chance of being stuck. And you have to force them open, which usually makes noise. So that's kind of a way to force random encounters. So I guess let's do a check here. Okay, this one's not stuck. We open it. And we see a training chamber. 5 suits of red-dyed leather armor reinforced with bronze studs on armor stands, as well as various bronze weapons on weapon racks covered in a rime of dust. The walls are covered in countless chips and nicks. So we got leather armor, we've got short swords, long swords, shields, and spears. Quite a bit here. I would lean towards grabbing a shield for Renal, to be perfectly honest. Now, I know that's going to trigger this animated armor, but I think it'd be unlikely that anyone would really suspect that. This is a benefit of having detect magic, by the way. So, yeah, we're just going to do it. And we're just going to have a combat, because it seems like the most likely thing. I mean, why wouldn't I grab a shield? So I'm going to grab a shield. I'm going to equip that right away to bump up to 12 AC. And then 3 suits of the leather armor spring to life. We have animated armors in combat. This isn't a surprise, just because I don't think they're immediately, like, smacking into us. I think it's like, you know, it's in, like, video game terms, they're doing, like, an animation where they kind of, like, animate, giving us a moment to, like, be aware of them. And then I think we just roll initiative. I think it's a pretty standard. I think it's a fairly standard encounter. It's just that they're not an obvious enemy. So it could be bad if, like, I don't know, you were caught in a compromising position, or you split up for some reason and the thief was like, oh, I'm going to go here and I lost my swords. I'm going to go back and grab one of those short swords. And then he triggers that, and, you know, that's, you're fucked. But anyways. What happens if you... oh, I guess, yeah, as soon as... If you were trying to take an armor, as soon as you touched one, the 3 of them would... Okay. So, let's roll initiative. We're rolling +3 on our side, and -1 on their side. Nice. +3, we got a 9. They got an 18. They're going first. Okay. This is where usually you would probably, if I was DMing, right as the priest touched the shield, I would ask everyone where they are in the room. And players, you know, you can't really be sure when a DM asks that kind of question. You can try and game it, but you really don't have all the information. So, the safest option usually is, like, by the door, of course. But the more people that say by the door, the more you're fucking over the priest, because he's definitely not by the door. He's grabbing a shield. So, the one that I would say is most likely by the door is going to be the thief, just because thieves are typically weaselly and cautious, so he would chime in immediately to say he's by the door. I know the type. But then the other 3 maybe are just kind of middling about in the room and examining stuff. And maybe the fighter was about to go for, like, a spear or something. Who knows what. And the wizard was inspecting the nicks on the wall and the chips and nicks. Chips and nicks, baby. So, the animated armor going first. We'll make it simple and nice and fair. Each of the three will go for one of the three characters in the room. And, yeah, so we're just going to roll that. They're pretty basic. It says that they have long swords. Yeah, why not? Because they're not. It just says that 3 suits spring to life, implying the armor springs to life. But they're not just gonna like bash into you. So I guess I would say that like the 3 of the long swords like lift into the air a little bit and snap into position next to the armors, and they start swinging them. So that's a D8. That's pretty vicious, but we're gonna go with it. So let's have the first one attack our poor wizard. They get +3 on the roll here. He rolled a 10, and that is enough. And he's gonna roll a D8. He rolled a 2. Not too bad. Wizard managed to only get a glancing blow. Against the fighter, second one rolls a 15. That is, unfortunately enough, 6 damage on the fighter. Ouch! That is hefty. And then on the priest, we got a 13, also enough, and 4 damage. We're all 1 hit away from being dead, for sure. So we need to take them all out quickly. Or run for our lives, which is the much smarter option, by the way. Unless you are planning to loot everything else in this room, it is so much smarter to run. Because we would get basically nothing. I wouldn't rule that these animated armors have treasure on them. That would be weird. It wouldn't make any sense. They don't have pockets. They have nothing. So the treasure is just the mundane weapons and armor in here. So yeah, fuck it. I wanted to hit something with my great axe, but no, we're gonna run. And we're gonna slam the door shut behind us. And that's it. You know, as a DM, I would say, yeah, okay, done. There's no opportunity attacks. It's not like this massive room that we have to run out of. I mean, anyone can cover this room in a turn, if you're not doing anything else. And then the thief was just ready to slam the door shut because he's got 1 HP. He's not fighting anything. So yeah, that's it. Combat over. I mean, they might sort of. The armor you could maybe say is gonna like slam their swords against the stone door a bit. And maybe if you want to be mean, that makes enough of a racket to cause a random encounter. But we took our lumps there. At least the priest got a shield. Now, we didn't lose Cure Wounds as far as I remember. So I think we're fine. We can cast it. Let's start with the fighter. So this is... Should I give... Yeah, you know what? I'm going to give the wizard's luck token over. And the wizard has not been casting that many spells. Okay. So on the fighter, we got a 14, so that's good enough. Heals for 4. He's up to 7. Then we'll heal the priest himself. No problem. Heals for fucking 1. Heal the priest again. No problem. Back to full. Okay, and then the fighter again. Roll the 1. That's it. That's actually really bad, because now you have to perform penance. So if the wizard rolls a 1, he has a mishap, which is a random bad thing that happens. If the priest rolls a 1, however, not only does the spell not go off, but our deity is greatly displeased and revokes its power. We can't cast that spell again until we complete ritualistic penance to our deity and complete a rest. So the GM determines the exact nature of the penance we must perform. based on our deity and alignment. So our deity is Ged, which I think is like the primal deity. So it says penance requires a holy quest, ritualistic atonement, or a material sacrifice that you donate or destroy. And if you fuck it up or do it inadequately, you could lose the spell permanently, which is pretty bad. I don't think DMs want to do that too lightly. But yeah, it could happen. And then there's like a suggested sacrifice value depending on the spell tier. So our priest is going to have to give up 5 gold or equivalent value. I think in this case, it's not super major. But I would probably say, since it's a primal deity, he either has to like bury 5 gold worth of coin in the earth and like leave it there, obviously, or toss 5 gold worth of coin or treasure into the ocean or a natural body of water. Something like that is what I would say. Once you get to the higher values, yeah, then you probably want to incorporate like quests, like side quests where you have to perform some penance at a specific location. Things like that, because then that offers opportunity for the whole group to like have a little adventure that's not just all about the priest. But for spell tier 1, usually I wouldn't imagine you do anything too big unless they were trying to cast the spell in a really like sacrilegious or blasphemous way, or I don't know, something like that, and they rolled a 1. But yeah, so no cure wounds. Let me put an asterisk next to light and a double asterisk next to cure wounds because we gotta perform penance. So the priest is pretty fucking worthless at this point, man. Despite his +5 spellcasting. So if you're lucky, you can cast cure wounds like 100 times in a day. If you're unlucky though, it might just be once, and then you have to do penance. Actually, no. If you roll a 1 on your first thing, you're just fucked. That is just unfortunate. Alright, we gotta roll a random encounter check. We're fine. It's not great, but at least he did heal up some shit, so we're not devastated. Let's continue on to room number 26. The Hall of Kings. So we got 3 alcoves, each containing a bronze lifelike statue of a man on a raised pedestal. Statues are athletic, proud, with similar facial features, draped in robes and wearing diadems with pearls, each of them also holding a weapon. First is Damanthus, son of Aster, holding a great sword. Sarpin, son of Damanthus, holding a spear. And Minoros, son of Sarpin, holding a great axe. So the weapons are all made of bronze and kind of, part of the statue. But the diadems containing the pearls, well, the pearls at least, are retrievable, but touching them will cause the statue to swing its weapon. Sort of the worst part about running these modules solo, because like how can knowledge of a trap not influence your decision in some way? Again, you kind of just have to force yourself to do something stupid. Yeah, it's very nice and easy to just be like, well, I search for traps. And we can just always assume that the thief is searching everything for traps. And he might not necessarily spot the trap, and he might not necessarily be able to disable the trap, I guess. So I think some people do play like that, where they're always assuming that their characters are like kind of hyper competent when it comes to awareness of things, because the DM, the player, is aware of everything. So I guess let's say that the thief decides to suddenly try checking for traps. So let's roll a wisdom with advantage. Well, he rolled a 19. Also, I think we still have yet to roll a 20. I don't recall saying the words crit at any point. But he got a 19, which is good enough to notice that there's a trap, and that touching the pearl will cause the statue to swing. I'm not sure exactly how you would explain such a mechanism. Luckily, I DM for a group that doesn't really care. Like, as long as you tell them that they can disable it, potentially, that's good enough for them, rather than getting into the nitty-gritty. Some DMs I know, they don't do it really by roles. Like, you have to describe what you're doing to the trap in order to be able to disable it. And then if you describe correctly how to disable it, then you just do it. And there's no roll. But that suggests then that the DM has to have full and complete knowledge of how all of the traps in his game work. And that seems like way too much trouble. So we're just gonna do the old-fashioned way. Let's set the DC fairly high at 15. Because I don't really know how you would disable this. I don't even know how could you even set up a trap like this? Unless magic. Magic explains everything. But then if it's a magic trap, how does the thief disable it? I was under the assumption the thief only can disable mechanical traps, physical traps, non-magical traps. How would you connect mechanically a pearl to a statue to cause it to swing its weapon at you? I guess if there's a wire on the backside of the pearl, and that's connected to a mechanism inside, in which case, how in God's green earth would you disable that without triggering it? As soon as you moved the pearl to even look at the wire, you've already triggered it, and you're dead. The only thing I would say, really, is that you just kind of stand to the side and just purposefully trigger the trap when you pull on the pearl. Or really, yeah, stand to the side and use, like, your short sword to just, like, nudge the pearl. Honestly, that would do it. So, fuck it, I'm not even gonna roll. I already explained it. Done. I did what I said was crazy. Yeah, I guess sometimes that works. But the problem is, the player wouldn't know how the mechanism works without being the DM, and because how would the thief know that there's a wire on the back end of it? Which goes back to the original issue of how did he discover that it was trapped? He couldn't. He physically couldn't in that case. He couldn't. Tell me how the thief would tell that mechanism is trapped. If he even touches the pearl, the trap triggers. So, what information could he glean from the statue without touching the pearl to know that a wire runs from the backside of the pearl into the statue to a mechanism that causes it to raise and swing its weapon? I mean, I guess maybe he could see that some things on the weapon and the statue are, like, hinged and that it's capable of movement, but you would never be able to connect that to the pearl, except that the thief, I suppose you could say, has, like, intrinsic knowledge of traps of this kind of era or of this setting and sort of stuff. And just, he's been in dungeons, he's been mentored, he understands most traps in an instinctive way now. He has this just sort of innate knowledge of traps. And so seeing this statue, seeing the hinges in the joints of the statue and the weapon, and the only valuable thing that looks like it could be moved that isn't bronze is the pearl, he could put 2 and 2 together and say, okay, if someone touches the pearl, this thing's probably going to move and most likely swing its weapon, and therefore trapped. Therefore, the best way to disable the trap is to just poke the pearl from the side with my sword, causing it to swing at nothing and the pearl coming loose. Done. I think I answered all my own questions, so let's move on. And really, with that explanation in hand, we can easily get all 3 pearls with no danger whatsoever. If you have any complaints about that, now's the time to speak. So, we need 3 pearls, and I'm running out of slots here, so I'm not quite sure what to give up. We're gonna dump a javelin, I suppose, and we'll dump a torch. Let's dump one of them. Oh yeah, I have one more slot. Okay, fighters can take all 3 there if we dump a javelin and a torch. Now is probably a good time to leave, though. We are full. We cannot take any more objects. We should just leave. And we know a way out. We just passed it back there. So let's go back the way we came. There's no point in even going further. We can come back if we want, but honestly, we got a very nice payday here, and we all survived. That's a pretty big win. Also, we're going to give ourselves 1 more XP to go to 9. And we'll most likely carouse for the rest. So let's go back out. Let's make 1 more random encounter check just as we get, like, right here towards the exit. We'll roll. Okay, no random encounter. We're fine. We're out. We're done. And, we make it, we travel back to a settlement. I mean, it's pretty early in the day. We woke up in 17. We went through here. We went through here. We went through here. We poked in here. We went up here, 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 here. That probably took what? Like, oh, actually, we know how long that took. Like an hour and a half? With my, my constant, like, stopping and just talking about nonsense related to the limited text for an hour. But I guess that's the group just sort of conversing amongst themselves over and over about what to do and why this is nonsense. Anyways, so we walk for another 4 hours and we get to a settlement. I wonder how big this settlement is. There's some rules here for, like, generating that kind of stuff. Okay, here. This is the size of the settlement, so it's a D6. Okay, it's a metropolis. Okay, so we're a 4-hour walk from one of the biggest cities in the country. That's good. Well, that's good, because there's plenty of places to sell all these goods. What's the... Let's see what people say in the OSR community about selling stuff. Seems a lot of people just give the full value for any, like, jewels and gems and stuff like that. But obviously there's considerations for like location. And I do often consider that. If the players are in like a backwater village, which is why I wanted to see what sort of settlement they were heading to. If you're heading to a backwater village, the guy running the little general store is not going to shell out like all his funds for your pearls and emeralds and stuff, because there's no value in that to him, and it would take him a long time when he's not really liquid to sell all that to some bigger merchant, and that makes him really robbable because someone can just take his like 8 emeralds and that's all he has in life. So, whereas going to a big city and going to like a jeweler or something that can very easily move gems amongst the nobility, it's sort of a difference. I'm generally okay with just that idea of gems and treasures and stuff. I think that's how Pathfinder 2nd Edition did it when we played that. Any stuff that was like specifically treasure and had no like functional use was just automatically sold for its full value. Okay, let's just roll with that. It's fine. It's a lot of money. It's a little gamey, I'll admit. And if I were DMing, yeah, there might be some haggle zone there where I would, when they would go to a merchant, assuming they picked, a properly sized settlement for what they're trying to sell, assuming they go to a properly designated merchant for what they're trying to sell. If they just go to like the blacksmith to buy a new weapon and they're like, here, I'm going to give you some pearls. And it's like, what the fuck do I want this for? You're giving him an errand because he has to then go take those pearls somewhere else to sell them for the gold that he wants. I'm sure that there is in bigger cities probably some mechanism of bartering, and precious gems probably do get handed around on occasion, but I suppose it depends also on the world setting and how common like dungeoneering is. If adventurers are constantly going into dungeons, then the market's going to be fairly filled with precious gems and stuff. I don't know. I think there are some games that actually do kind of take that into account. But regardless, I would probably, like, when they say, how much is this worth? I'd take, like, 5 or 10% maybe off the value. From what, as that's what the merchant would say. And then if they wanted to try and haggle, they could get it up to the value or beyond, depending on how well they roll or convince them or whatever. But for our purposes, let's just go for market value on all this treasure that we found. Which is, let's see, the pearls are all 40. We've already established that. So, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pearls. Times 40 is, 200 gold. Just off of the pearls. That's crazy. Okay, 200 gold off pearls. Then we have the emerald and the shattered emerald. So that's 140 plus. So we're at 340 gold. Then we have the silver locket, which I think was just 5. Where the hell was the silver locket at? Oh yeah, that was 5. So we're at 345. Then the ivory egg, the cockatrice egg, is 40. So we're at 385. And that's it. That's all the treasure we got. 385 gold worth. That is a massive amount. Or it feels like a massive amount for like a good first haul out of a dungeon that was relatively safe. None of us died. I think we only had one. Did we have a character go down? Yes, we did, didn't we? When the jars exploded. Yeah, but we're fine. So 385 gold divided amongst 4 is 96 or so. Let's just call. Oh, but he also has to pay. Well, he can pay penance out of his own money. The 96 gold. We'll go with that. And 96. It's 120. Yeah. Okay. So then, of course, we want to carouse because we all want XP to get to level 2. So carousing. Each participant pitches in for the cost of the event. Then each participant rolls 1d8 plus the event's bonus to determine their own outcome. Yeah, I suppose that's fair that each person gets their own outcome. Because not everyone's going to end up in the same sort of situation. The thing is, like, this carousing table is really kind of weak. Even on, like, your first carousing roll, there's a good chance there's going to be duplicates amongst your group. So, but carousing exists in a lot of OSR games, and that means that there's a lot of other carousing tables out there. So, let me just see if I can find. Okay, so here's a 30.1. But the issue is when you go to a different carousing table. Like this one's based on Dungeon Crawl Classics. So the gold amount that you spend is different, and then that means that the roll is going to be different. So we could somehow correlate it, I suppose, but like this one does. The lowest amount is a 10 plus a d12. Then the next amount is a 1d24, and then the highest amount is a 1d30. So that means, obviously, the lower results are not as good. Like, anything. How do you even get 1 through 10? Oh, it's modified by your luck bonus. I see. So, in that way, you actually can have negatives. Because your luck can go down quite a bit. So that's probably not the best option for our purposes. We would want something maybe a bit more just generic D&D kind of stuff. This is like so this table is basically just a series of mishaps. If you fuck up the carousing roll, it just has a whole bunch of mishaps that can occur, which is what a lot of people like, is just like, how can this go hilariously wrong? You know, and as you can see, the Shadowdark one definitely has some of that as well. I don't know if I'm going to really find one without some extensive looking, though. That's going to work specifically for Shadowdark. I could probably find one and then adapt it, and I probably will do that once I start running a campaign in Shadowdark for people. So let's just do normal carousing, and I'm just going to do one roll for the whole group to make it simple. So they're all going to share in the experience that occurs. So we can spend up to 300 gold, and that will give us a +2. Or we can spend only 100 gold and go for a +1. I think in our case, probably 100 is the way to go. So everyone's going to spend 25 gold from their piles. And I have to do math in my head. Love that. Wizard is quite wealthy. And done. Okay, they all spent their 25 gold. So we're going to roll 1d8 + 1 for the carousing. And we have a 3 total. You wake up in the gutter with 15% of your total wealth spent. Gain 3 XP. So, now I have to calculate 15% of all these numbers. That's fun. I can't do percentages. Luckily, Google will save me. Okay, what is 15% of 85? Actually, let's do it the opposite way. What is 85% of 85? 72.25. So 72 gold, 2 silver, 5 copper is what he's got left. Okay, what's 85% of 95.7? 81.345. That's not how that works. We'll round up a little bit here. I'll just give him 5 copper. 85% of 73. This is so pointless of me to do. Is 62.05. I think that's correct. And then 72. 61.1999999. We will round up on that bad boy. Okay, but they all got 3 XP. And no other ill effects. So, I'm not quite sure how this is meant to work. I know how I would like it to work as a player, because otherwise I'd be pissed. But I don't know the intention of it. So, to gain a level, you need to earn your current level times 10 XP. Once you reach a new level, your total XP resets back to 0. So, to me, as written, that implies that I go to 12 XP right now, and then it goes to 0. And my extra 2 XP is wasted completely. Which is a shitty system, because that encourages you to gamify your XP in a way that is really non-diegetic. Because we're at 9 XP. So we're incentivized then, in a gamey way, to not carouse and not go for 3 XP, because then we will waste it. That's stupid. And instead, we should just go and pick up a little piece of treasure that we can find in order to get only 1 XP, so it's not wasted. Fuck that. Fuck that. So, any excess, I would say, of your level carries over to your new XP. So, we're all going to be at 2 XP out of 20. And we are at level 2. And obviously you level up when you rest. So that happens. So we're at full health, but we also get more health. So our thief is going to roll just a d4 -1. Actually, that's not correct. You don't... Con does not play a part anymore. So he just gets the d4. He adds 2 health, so he's at 3 now. The wizard also adding a d4, 3, so he's at 9. The dwarf gets to roll a d8 twice. Take the higher one. He rolled an 8, so he's at fucking 18 health. How insane is that? At level 2. And then the priest... Was the priest also a d4 or d6? D6. He only got 1. Well, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Yeah, if you want health, play a dwarf. By far. Okay, and then the rest, we get spells. So the priest, level 2, gets another tier 1 spell. At this point, I would say... Holy Weapon has some potential. It lasts for 5 rounds. You imbue a weapon with a sacred blessing. It becomes magical, gets +1 to attack and damage for the duration. That's probably pretty good. Especially like right before we do an ambush of some kind, putting it on the crossbow for the thief. That's big money. So yeah, I think we'll grab Holy Weapon. That's fine. And we'll do our penance before we caroused the priest, buried his 5 gold in the earth. So we have our Cure Wounds back, Light Spell back. And, yeah. Then the wizard, I think, gets a similar extra spell. Yep, he gets another tier 1 spell. So we will pick that. What was I missing? What was it? What did I feel like I did not have and I wished I had? Detect magic. I mean, we don't really need it, strictly speaking, because I read everything, but it would allow me to excuse a lot of shit. But at the same time, sleep is pretty good. But if we look at sleep, so it's a... Actually, sleep scales much better. No, it doesn't. Sleep doesn't scale at all. You can choose a number of living creatures in the area up to your level, but they have to be level 2 or less. So, similar restriction to Charm Person. This isn't a game where spells scale at all, for the most part. It's not that kind of game. If you want more powerful spells, they have to come from a higher tier and are thus harder to cast. But sleep still has, obviously, plenty of uses, much like Charm Person. Even when you get up to higher levels, plenty of people in the world are level 2 or less. So, you know, there's always shenanigans that can be pulled. But if we restrict our shenanigans spell to Charm Person, then I would say Burning Hands has potential. Mage Armor, especially for our wizard, has a lot of potential. Detect Magic. Featherfall has uses sometimes, but you can't cast it on others. We'll go with Mage Armor. I think it's overall the smartest option. It bumps his AC up to 13, I think. 14 or 18 on a crit. And it lasts for 10 rounds, which out of combat is a long time. Very long time. So that's pretty handy. The thief then is going to get the extra die of backstab damage now. Yeah, half your level rounded down, so that's +3 weapon dice. So 4d6 damage on crossbow backstabs. And the fighter gets +1 from weapon mastery. +2 and +2. So now his great axe is at a +5, dealing 1d8 +3 damage one-handed. 1d10 +3 damage two-handed. And the javelin's at +4, 1d4 +2. Not too shabby at all. Leveling up is good. And then at level 3, we would all get another talent roll, which could be very good as well. Stats technically cap out at 18. That's a +4 modifier. You can't have ever higher than a +4 modifier. You can keep increasing the stats in various ways, which can have some benefits. Like if you have a 25 strength, you technically have 25 gear slots. But for the most part, all you mostly care about is the modifier, which caps at +4. But, yeah, pretty good. I think we're going to end this mini-series here. That's a pretty good spot. And these characters are mostly pretty happy. The thief's still very weak, but he managed to survive the whole thing on 1 HP, so that's pretty great. And he is potentially a damage powerhouse if he gets his backstab off. The wizard, I would say, didn't do a whole lot, but he was the one that triggered the big explosion that killed the Minotaur, so he can take pride in that. The fighter swung his great axe once, I think, but he did kill something with it, so that's nice. And the priest healed a lot of people. The light spell was good, so, you know, they all played their parts. Level 2, they've got money to spare. They can beef up some stuff. I don't really know what they would all spend it on, as far as, like, standard mundane weapon and armor. Because the fighter has chainmail now, and he has a shield. He has a great weapon. He doesn't really need anything else. Healing potions, I guess, which I don't think are even mentioned in the rulebook. Oh, you're there. Potion of healing. None of these give prices for anything. I don't believe, because they're not really meant to be purchased. Yeah. So they don't get prices for any of this stuff, because it's typically a setting where things are not purchased. But if it's sort of weird, because it's like, if potions of healing exist, did civilization just entirely lose the ability to make potions of healing, and this is an ancient relic? And even if we bring it to the top alchemists, they can't figure out a way to redesign potions of healing, because it seems like a pretty valuable thing to have in your society. A fucking potion of healing. And if we can make potions of healing, why can't we buy them? Unless the ingredients are so uncommon and so rare that it's just unfeasible for almost anyone to make them. In which case, I should be able to find potions of healing and sell them for ludicrous amounts of money, because, again, who the fuck wouldn't want a potion of healing? So I think stuff like that should be available to purchase for reasonable prices. But, yeah, obviously, a lot of these magic items should be kept pretty magical and just stuff you find. And that's why a lot of games do put potions of healing and stuff on the the core kind of gear lists that you can purchase. They're just expensive a lot of the time. But yeah, buying a potion of healing could be handy just in case we don't have cure wounds on hand. But he's got 18 HP now. 1d6 is so little. But yeah, it was overall a fun experience. Blowing up the Minotaur, that was certainly the highlight. Very fun. I'm glad that worked out. It worked out because I said it worked out, but still. Poor Giuseppe will rot away inside there. Yeah, there's certainly some issues with this adventure, and I know we only touched on like half of it, and we barely interacted at all with the Ettercaps, and we didn't interact at all with the Beastmen, and those are like the two intelligent factions of there that you can encounter and like maybe converse with, and we managed to avoid them completely. But yeah, it's just some issues. I don't know if it's specifically this adventure that just is not super well written, or if it's just my issue when I really break down these things and try and understand it from like a rational perspective, and it just doesn't work, you know. Apparently not many people have brought up any issues with the pillars, and that other group that I watched had no issues with it and probably wouldn't really even comment on it too much, or comment on it at all negatively. So I don't know. And then the bull statue, again, maybe I'm overthinking stuff. I overthink too much. And I don't really have this problem much when I'm DMing. Things just kind of go and flow, and I just make calls, you know, and I try not to think about stuff too much. But here it's just like I can't stop thinking about it. But aside from that, you know, it's reasonably fun. It's definitely, you know, kind of a starter little dungeon. So yeah, I would like to do some more of this. And I think going past this will probably there are other Shadowdark adventures. There's not a massive amount of Shadowdark adventures because it's a relatively new system, but of course you can run all sorts of stuff with it. So this is one of the official supplements, the Cursed Scroll. This is the first one, and this one has the Hideous Halls of Mugdalblub as an adventure. Oh, my torch went out. And so this is a first level adventure. We could run it at level 2 if we wanted. But this one actually has 33 areas, and I haven't really read this one at all. So that's an option. The Cursed Scroll 2 has the Fortress of the Burning Brothers, which is a 4th through 6th level adventure. And then the third one has, I think, a Gauntlet, the Horde of the Seawolf King. So if we do another one, which I would like to, we'll look elsewhere to non-Shadowdark stuff, and there's thousands of modules we can run. So I don't know which one I would pick specifically. Some sort of, you know, low-level thing for Old School Essentials or DCC, or just an actual old school thing. But yeah, ideally, I'd like to pick something that I actually plan on running for my family, so that I can kind of learn every aspect of it. But yeah, it's good stuff. It's certainly a very different experience than my other solo role-making stuff before, when I was like just plopped in my campaign world and coming up with quests as I went and stuff like that, and just trying to run a single character as far as I can, doing creative shit. This is much more structured and much more gamey in a lot of ways, and I have to kind of abide by their adventure and restrict myself in certain ways because I know what's happening. But it's a fun, different experience, much like Pathfinder on Foundry was. You know, that was a fun sort of video gamey experience as well. But all right, that's enough out of me. I don't know when the next one will happen, but I recommend Shadowdark by yourself or with other people. It's all good. For now, though, my name is Mang. This has been Solo Roll Manging with Shadowdark. And I'll see you fine folks around.